Lake Winnipesaukee. In the mid-1500s, on the north shores of what is now known as Lake Winnipesaukee, lived a great Indian chief, known as Chief Wanaton. Chief Wanaton was a courageous man with a beautiful daughter, Manola, that he protected profusely. Keeping the young lads that lived in the village away from his daughter became a full-time job for the chief. One day, a young chief named Adawando, from a very hostile Indian tribe on the south side of Lake Winnipesaukee, paddled his way across the entire lake after hearing the stories about this beautiful young woman known as Manola that lived to the north. He entered the northern village fearlessly in search of her, and the chief was away from the village at the time of the unwanted invasion. Others in the village were too afraid to battle the violent chief from the south without their fearless leader. After a short time, the two fell deeply in love. When the chief learned of this new relationship his daughter had, he was furious to learn that the young chief was the rival enemy from the south. Chief Wanaton searched the village for the young boy who dared to take his daughter's hand. Once found, the chief chased the man with his tomahawk, swinging it violently to kill his enemy. Manola ran to her lover's aid and begged her father not to kill him. The chief's daughter succeeded in convincing her father to let them be together forever. On the day of their very traditional wedding, all tribe members were ordered to paddle their canoes to the middle of Lake Winnipesaukee. The sky was dark and gray. Tribe members prepared for the bad weather and got into their canoes. By the time they all reached the middle of the lake, the sky cleared, the sun came out, and the water sparkled from the bright sunlight. But only around the canoe of Manola and Adawando. Chief Wanaton said, "This is a good omen. The waters will now be called Winnipesaukee, the Indian name for Smile of the Great Spirit." Cocheco Mills. In January of 1907, a fire broke out in this mill on the 4th floor. The sprinkler system was turned off for repair, so the fire spread quickly. Many workers were trapped on the 4th and 5th floor. The power was shut down, leaving these panicked employees to escape through the darkness and smoke. The mill had only one fire escape, so many people were injured as they leapt from the upper windows. Firefighters that responded battled this fire for 36 hours. They found their ladders did not reach the upper floors of the mill. 30-degree temperatures hampered their efforts. It was so cold the water from the fire engines froze almost immediately, and the firemen could only work in half-hour shifts. To make matters worse, the wheels from several buggies driven in by siders cut several of the fire hoses. In the end, 6 lives were lost, and the million-dollar building was practically destroyed. 3 stories collapsed into one another, taking tons of machinery down with them. Just days before this fire, the mutual insurance company had declared it excellent when it came to safety. At this point in the cotton mills often caught fire. They were not kept as clean as they are today. Cotton fiber is extremely flammable when it is in a light or fluffy stage. The cause for the fire was never determined, but it was possible friction caused by the large machinery that might have set it off. Another possibility was human error. One eyewitness to this fire, a prisoner who observed the tragedy from his cell in the jail across from the mill, wrote a poem about what he saw. Many feel that the 1907 fire is the reason for all of the hauntings in this mill, which seem to coincide with various eyewitness accounts that seem to point to the building. Two common reports are of strange lights being seen only on the upper floors of the building when it has been empty. Before the more modern renovations, witnesses reported seeing a light on in the basement at the time when the entrances to these rooms were blocked off. In more recent times, many people have reported hearing disembodied voices, especially in the top 2 floors. One eerie report involves people hearing the old mill's machinery starting up and shutting down. Many witnesses claim that after a few minutes, one very loud machine takes over. These reports are strange, considering the fact that there is no longer mill machinery housed in this building. Chase Home for Children. Built in the 1800s as an orphanage for children, it is a court-appointed residential home for children today. A female spirit has been seen in the hallways on numerous occasions, running away and then quickly disappearing. Legend states that she hung herself several years ago in the hallway. Other strange happenings at this home include sounds of a young girl's screams, locked doors opened, lights and ceiling fans shutting off and on. Here is a first-hand account from a previous worker. I don't want to say who I am. I worked there. The place was haunted. I worked all over that place. It's getting to be a secret because they are afraid people will not want to come live in there. They need kids to agree to live there. But truth is, it's crawling with spirits and sounds and apparitions. Staff are scared at times to go in some of the rooms. Locks switch, and lights flash on and off on their own. It's common knowledge to those who work there. Everyone knows. While I was working there, I saw a book rise off of a table, stand in midair, and then drop to the ground. After I gulped down the reality, I looked at the name of the book. It was called Unholy Magic. On the cover was written the words, "A Lost Child," in red marker. As you can guess, I do not work there any longer. There are so many things I witnessed. No one will admit that these things happen. Keys that always fit a certain lock will no longer work. Once you do get in, all the furniture is moved. I had to pry locks open with a credit card, only to find things missing. Beware, my friends. This one is for real. Devil monkeys. The devil monkey is a cryptoid giant monkey. It's reportedly around 5 feet tall, with long pointed ears, appears to be gray, large dark eyes, long arms, short tail, and hair all over its body, about 1.5 inches long, and is reportedly aggressive. Sightings in the woods go all the way back to the 1950s, and in 2001, a dozen people in Danville saw the creature. On September 9th, 2001, in rural Danville, New Hampshire, search parties were engaged in looking for a giant monkey, spotted near Pleasant Street and Kingston Road. During the period of the previous 2 weeks, at least 10 giant monkey sightings were reported to local authorities. The darkly colored, hairy giant monkey reportedly measured 8 feet long, from its head to tail. Local residents were said to be getting very nervous about the 8 feet. On the Monday, after the weekend of all this local media attention and giant monkey searches, NBC TV News sent a film crew to Danville. The camera people, producer, and reporter spent their time recording a human interest story that was scheduled to air the next morning on the Today Show. But it never did. The report was never shown. The Witch of Hampton. In 1635, a maid named Eunice Gallus married a sawyer named William Coles. At the medieval church of St. Dustain's in parish of Middlesex, England, just outside the walled city of London. They soon arrived in New England during the summer or fall of 1636. They lived just south of Boston until late 1637, when they were among the first settlers in Exeter, New Hampshire. In 1640, the town of Hampton granted land to William, but he continued to appear in the Exeter records until about 1644. Once here, Eunice's legal troubles began almost immediately. Long before her first trial for witchcraft, she was fined, set in the stacks, admonished, and even whipped for various infractions. Neither the civil authorities or her husband, who once joined her in railing against the injustice, would subdue her for long. During the quarter century from her first witchcraft trial in 1656 until her death in 1680, she spent more than half of her time in prison. In all, she was whipped at least twice, maybe 3 times, hauled before the court on at least 8 occasions, fined twice, admonished once, twice put under a bond, set in the stocks, searched for witch marks, watched for imps, and, near the end of her life, was locked in leg irons and imprisoned one final time. 26 witnesses testified against her first trial for witchcraft, held in Boston. The main evidence brought against her were the witch marks discovered on her body at the first whipping. The reason for the whipping seems to have been related to her involvement in the death of a child. Witnesses also implicated her in the death of a bedridden man. Said she had killed their cattle through demonic agencies, and that she had an uncanny knowledge of private conversation. Convicted on lesser charges, she was kept at the Boston prison until early 1660. When she returned home, she was immediately back in trouble for calling her neighbors despicable names. She was again whipped and sent back to prison. When her husband died in 1662, she petitioned the court to release her, which was granted. Unable to abide by the terms of the release, she was sent back to prison for a 3rd time. Coincidentally, on the morning after she had been observed discouraging in her house with the devil himself. Her house and land were taken from her, and she became a ward of the town, which paid a yearly charge to keep her incarcerated. 8 years later, and over 70 years old and homeless, she was freed from prison. When she returned to Hampton, the town put her in a cottage near the meeting house and grudgingly provided her with food and wood. The trouble again started up, with a whining pup in the meeting house, threats made to the night's watchman, and the enticing of a 9-year-old girl. The last offense was deemed witchcraft, and in 1673, she was put again on trial. The prosecutors threw the kitchen sink of testimony at her, even bringing in decade-old evidence to wring out a conviction. Yet, after all their hard work, the jury stubbornly refused to find her legally guilty. Again, she was returned to Hampton. Nothing more was heard of her by way of the court until 1680, when she was again accused of being a witch. And for that, she was locked in leg irons and held in a local prison. 1 month later, she died. Hopefully you ghouls enjoyed this pretty long urban legends from New Hampshire video. I really enjoyed learning about the New Hampshire witch, and I honestly had no idea about it, and I thought I was like on top of my witches, but I guess I wasn't. And it's really interesting, and I really liked it, and I hope you ghouls learned something, because I honestly had no idea this was a thing. And if you're from New Hampshire, is this like a big thing to know? You know how kind of in Massachusetts, they have the witch trial, you know, the Salem witch trials there, and it's like this big thing. Is it big where you are about the New Hampshire witch? Or is it just kind of like, urban legend, you know, I talk about it every now and again? Let me know in the comments. But as always, ghouls, the last video will be on the top left. The next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen, as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.